Hello, my name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, currently ranking and reviewing every single Frank Zappa album released after he passed away in December of 1993. There were 55 of them that I counted on the Zappa.com official discography. There were 55 released during his life that I counted. I've already reviewed those elsewhere on this channel. And I am now on the other 55, and I am on number 25, The Mothers 1970. This album came out at the end of June in 2020. It is now very early April 2021, so it's been out just over 9 months. I really like this collection. The Mothers 1970 was a band in an era. The first half of the Flo and Eddie era was 70. The second half was 71, not just in terms of time, but they were different formations of the band. This band, the Mothers 1970 band, was really only featured prior to the last couple years, was only really featured on Chunga's Revenge. That was kind of their album. And then in recent years, you had the release of Road Tapes Venue 3, which was my number 26 album, which was 2 complete live shows from the end of the first leg of their long tour. 2 complete shows from that, and now you get this, which is a 4-disc set, which has some studio stuff that they did. They recorded stuff in studio in June of 70. It has a couple sort of cobbled together complete shows, both using, like, I guess, tapes that they found in the vault, plus, I guess, bootlegs. I guess they actually used bootlegs, if my understanding is correct. And the third disc is, like, mostly a Santa Monica show, but then there's stuff from like other show, like a Spokane show, edited in to make it like flow seamlessly. Or there's some manipulation going on here, but it all works. I think it's all phenomenal. And then the fourth disc, so discs 2 and 3 are kind of complete shows, and then disc 4 is kind of a bunch of random stuff, but excellent random stuff, like some gems. All 4 discs have complete gems. The sound quality is not that great. That needs to be said. This is 1970. Almost all recordings from this band are very Dunbar dominated, and during some of the solos, things can get buried in the mix, and Frank's guitar isn't as prominent as you might like it to be, but I don't think it hurts in this case, because these grooves really are such grooves that Frank's riding along with and not necessarily playing against or playing around. He's inside the pocket in a lot of these solos, and so losing him in that pocket, I don't think hurts the music that much. This band that is featured on here is Frank. It is the first year of Flo and Eddie, the Turtles singers Mark Volman and Howard Kalin. As I said on the Road Tapes Venue 3 release, some of these shows there is no new Flo and Eddie material. A lot of this stuff features just that early May through July run where you don't get any of the groupie stuff, and then eventually the groupie stuff starts seeping in at the end of that. But this disc focuses a lot on King Kong, Pound for a Brown. There's a Colony Vegetable. There's a lot of guitar solo and just solo excerpts. So even though Flo and Eddie are here, they really, in a way, play a minor, not a minor part, but then a less than central part than they would definitely play if there were to be a Mothers 1971 release. Only because there was Devon in that year and Billy the Mountain, and a lot of ways you can't avoid Flo and Eddie. Jeff Simmons was on bass. Jeff Simmons would leave the band at the end of this year because he was tired of playing the comedy stuff, which was starting to seep in by the end of the year. George Duke, Ian Underwood, and the amazing Ainsley Dunbar on drums. And so, yeah, so I really enjoy this. I think of the 4 CDs, CD 1 is the most interesting and the most fascinating as a hardcore fan, but it's definitely the one I have re-listened to least. 2 and 3 are probably equally on the same footing. I think I probably like 3 a little bit more because of the King Kong. And then disc 4 is the one I listen to far more than any other, even though it has Sanzini Brothers and the Paladin Routine and the Benoit sword trick, which the below sword trick. So even though it has a lot of Flo and Eddie asides, which I can do without, the stuff that is like solos and instrumentals and extracts from other songs is some of the best stuff, like just great stuff. So here is what is on this in case you are interested in this. This is, I'm going to say, like, before I get into the songs, I will say that I can't imagine what other release would come from this band that would rank higher than 25 on a list of mine. I think this might be the ceiling. This and number 26, which was Road Tapes Venue 3, those two complete shows, that just might be the ceiling for the 1970 band. I'm not sure a specific, really the only thing that I think could be released that could rank higher than this is one specific show that has A Pound for a Brown and a King Kong and maybe A Holiday in Berlin, but has these songs with really good guitar solos. Other than that, I don't know of bootlegs that exist. I don't have tapes that exist. I don't know of anything that is really better than this as far as the Mothers 1970 go. To me, this is the final word on this band. And the final word on this band is it's not going to be any higher than 25. It was, prior to this release, probably one of my least favorite tours. 84, 71, Too Much Flo and Eddie. And 70, I think, because my experience with it was just a couple boots and Chunga's Revenge and not a lot more. I have tapes, but the sound quality on them is consistently not that good. I think I have a much kinder view of the Mothers 1970. And I definitely, some of my all-time favorite things are on here. Every single King Kong on here I can listen to over and over and over again. Same with the Pound for Browns. So there is some incredible stuff. But I think this is the ceiling for this band in my view. Like, if Zappa Family Trust was not to release anything else from Mothers 1970, I think I would be okay with that. I would like to see another complete show from later in the year, but if it never happens, I think I'm satisfied with what I know about this band, which I don't think I would ever have said that about a Frank band, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else it would offer other than more just incredible King Kongs and stuff like that. So, disc 1, this is the studio disc. This is stuff they went and they recorded a bunch of stuff in the studio. And there are a couple things on here that I had heard rumors about. I had heard these things existed. I got a hold of one of them on a really poor quality tape once, and I wasn't even sure that was what I was listening to. There were some great, like, oh yes, they're finally releasing this type things. But now that I've heard them and now that I know them, I understand why Frank never did anything else with them. So this is disc 1. Opens up with something called Red Tubular Lighter. This is like an instrumental with a very kind of funky, like boom, bam, 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 like little guitar intro. And then there's some soloing and there's some drum solo action, I think, at some point in it, or maybe that's in Lola. There's a lot of drum solos on this in this studio stuff. It's interesting, but I don't think it's that good. The drum solo's in the unedited master take. I think the shortened 5-minute version doesn't have the drum solo, but the unedited master does. But it's interesting, but I understand why Frank didn't do anything with it after this. Lola Stepansky is next. This is Giraffe, the song that I had heard floating around, that I have a performance of it on a tape, but I could not tell you if it actually is Giraffe. It could be, they could be doing like a really early version of Stevie Spanking. For all I know, the sound quality is so bad. This is a song that's apparently about the Holocaust and has a list of people who survived the Holocaust. This is an odd one. I kind of like the music. It almost has a Hot Rats Sessions kind of thing, either maybe like a Little Umbrellas or like even a 20 Small Cigars feel about it. There's vocals, but again, it's not that catchy and not that interesting. There's potential, but it's more of like, oh, I finally heard this song. Then you get some studio chatter. You get the Roy Thomas Baker, the producer, mix of Charlena. And I like this mix. It's a much kinder, gentler, softer Charlena mix. And I think it works really well. You get item number 1, which is drums and Frank kind of playing some kind of almost Ocean is the Ultimate Solution type guitar and bass over Dunbar's drums. Kind of just studio fooling aroundness. I did not think it was that interesting. You get a Wonderful Wino with Frank on vocals. The great thing about this was, so Wonderful Wino first came out on Jeff Simmons' solo album, and apparently Frank had written the words. And so he had these lyrics, and maybe he had a musical idea, but Simmons had this music track, and they were looking for another track for Simmons' debut album, Lucille Has Messed My Mind Up. And so Frank just kind of married his lyrics to this music and then put it on Simmons' track. So then when Simmons joined the band the following year, they recorded it. They would start playing it live, but then they also went into the studio and recorded it, but they never released it. And then Frank would then re-record it later on and then put it on Zoot Allures. So it is a very interesting sort of track record in Frank's career. But here you get a really good version of it with a Frank Zappa vocal. There's another version of it that closes out the CD that is a different solo. It's a really good song. It doesn't have the Bringin' in the Sheaves intro. At least I don't think it has the Bringin' in the Sheaves intro. I think yes, it does have it. It's the Simmons album that doesn't have it. This one does have the Bringin' in the Sheaves intro. That was how they recorded it in the studio and how they would play it live. Some studio discussion in Enormous Cadenza. Then you get Envelopes. You get a version of them playing Envelopes with a very piano-led, a very slow, a very undynamic version of Envelopes. There's a long drum solo. I think it is very interesting to hear, but it is by far the weakest of every released version of Envelopes, in my opinion. I don't need to go back and listen to it now that I've heard it. To me, it was like, oh, that's really cool, but yeah, I see why Frank waited. He didn't quite find what made it work yet. Then you get the full 9.5 minute version of Red Tubular Lighter. You get another version of Wonderful Wino without vocals. You get Giraffe, which is Lola Stepansky, but this is the longer version with a lot more drums in it and a little solos. And I think it's the instrumental version. I don't think there are lyrics in this one. And then Wonderful Wino again. So it's an interesting disc, and it has a lot of, whoa, I finally get to hear this, but all of those I finally get to hears don't really pay off. So the first disc is really, really for the hardcore fan. The second two discs, 2 and 3, are just compiled to feel like live shows. So the second show on disc 2, you get Wonderful Wino, Concentration Moon, Mom and Dad, The Air, Dog Breath, no guitar solo, Mother People, You Didn't Try to Call Me, which kind of has a little guitar jam at the end. You get Stravinsky's A Gone, which always opened up Colony Vegetable for like the middle portion of this band. You get a pretty good Colony Vegetable. Then you get what is great every time it appears in this. You get a King Kong with solos, usually a Duke solo. Then it goes into Igor's Boogie, which was probably one of the most inspired setlist choices Frank ever made. King Kong, Igor's Boogie, back into King Kong with more solos. You usually in all of these get a Duke solo, Igor's Boogie, an Ian solo, and then a Frank solo, sometimes an Ainsley solo. This one, I think it's just Ian. It might just be Frank, but I think it's just Ian and Frank. You get a What Kind of Girl Do You Think We Are, a Buona Dick, a Daddy, 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 a Do You Like My New Car, and then it closes out with Happy Together. So you get a pretty good second disc. You get a little bit, it's a little light on guitar solo-ness, but that middle Colony Vegetable King Kong thing is fantastic. The third disc is another edited, it's actually I think 2 bootlegs or 2 different shows edited together feel like one. You get the intro, Welcome to El Monte Legion Stadium. You get A Gone, the Stravinsky's A Gone, Colony Vegetable. You get A Pound for a Brown, Sleeping in a Jar, and Charlena, Pound for a Brown. This is a great Pound for a Brown. I mean, these are not lengthy solos, but they're just really good solos. And if you haven't heard Sleeping in a Jar from this tour, it's a really fun, drawn-out version. You get Charlena, you get that kind of mini run of songs again, The Air, Dog Breath, Mother People, You Didn't Try to Call Me, with that nice little jam at the end, You Didn't Try to Call Me. You get another King Kong, Igor's Boogie, King Kong. Then you get a Trouble Every Day, which is kind of a slow, boom, 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 kind of a slow version. Frank does the 2 verses in the chorus, and then he solos, and then kind of fades away. They fade away into like a vamp, in which Frank introduces the next songs, which are Road Ladies. Then you get What Will This Morning Bring Me This Evening, but it doesn't have the closing. What will I say to whatever I drag to my home? What will I say the next day to whatever I drag to my hotel tonight? If you do that, all right. You don't get that part, which is one of Frank's all-time greatest melodies. And instead it goes into What Kind of Girl Do You Think We Are? So those are the middle two discs. Both of them have really solid King Kongs, pretty good Colony Vegetables, and a bunch of other songs that kind of repeat each other, but they're fun listens. It's a fun band. But they're not any better than 25. It's a really good listen. Like I'm trying to hedge my bets here because I'm trying to justify it at 25, but it's still really good music. But the fourth disc, that's where it's at. You get some backstage chatter. You get another version of the Mothers of Invention Anti-Smut Loyalty Oath. This one is not as good as You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 6 version. You get the Paladin routine. This is Flo and Eddie doing jokes. Then you get Portuguese Fenders, which is like a 3-minute guitar solo. Kind of sounds like it comes from a holiday in Berlin, a very aggressive holiday in Berlin. I don't know where it's from, but it almost sounds like they're going to slide maybe into Cruisin' for Burgers at the end of it, but I'm not sure. And it also sounds like maybe he's going to dip into some Inca Roads, but he doesn't. So I don't know. Not really sure where it's from. Get a Sanzini Brothers, which is, again, a visual Flo and Eddie trick. Then you get Guitar Build 70. Which makes me think that because it is called Guitar Build, it's edited from two different sources, because right about a third of the way through, just before the 2-minute mark, like it shifts gears rather dramatically, where all of a sudden they're like in fourth and they just like downshift to first. And it sounds pretty good, but it's not a hard like Frank would normally do. It's more of like a, and it's not your typical Frank segue of rhythms. So it makes me think that Guitar Build means it's an edit. The first part definitely has for me like a Pound for a Brown vibe. Could be King Kong because the King Kong solos were all over the place, but kind of feels like Pound for a Brown. And then once they do that downshift, he starts quoting Inca Roads, which makes me think it comes from a holiday in Berlin or a Return of the Hunchback Duke, as it was called here. And during that latter part of the solo, there is a really nice, I'm going to call it a Santana moment, though the note is not high and piercing. It's more of a, where he just holds this note for a really long time, and it kind of gets drenched and wrapped in this feedback, and this level of noise just kind of takes over before everything calms down and it goes into like this other dimension. Thing's about 5.5 minutes long. Great, just great solo. Makes up for the Sanzini Brothers. Then you get a Would You Go All the Way. Then you get an Easy Meet. This is one of those where, like, when You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 1 came out, and one of the first thing you hear on that entire thing is Howie going, I was right in the middle of singing Easy Meet or something last night. People are like, what? They did Easy Meet? And then it would kind of pop up on set lists if you were collecting tapes, but this is it, an Easy Meet. Sounds just like the Fall 78 version, except instead of having that opening da-na-na-na-na-na-na, it starts with She Told Me? No. What is This Girl Is Easy Meet? Just starts off right with that. So the name of the song is Easy Meet. This girl, like that, right into it. A great solo, really good solo. This is a good song. Again, the sound quality on these two is not that great, but you can still enjoy it. You get Who Did It, which is some chatter. You get Turn It Down, which is a King Kong keyboard solo, a really long, extended King Kong keyboard solo that sounds jazzy and funky and incredible. Pretty sure it's George Duke. And then somebody yells Turn It Down at the end, and Frank takes a quick pull, and nobody but the guy who yells it wants it turned down. Some more talking, and then this disc closes out with Pound for a Round, Sleepin' in a Jar. We get another Flo and Eddie, the Beloit, B-E-L-O-I-T, Beloit sword trick. Kong solos part 1, which is 15 minutes long. I think you get a Frank solo, you get a sax solo, you get a drum solo, you get a keyboard solo. Then that goes into Igor's Boogie. Then you get another Frank solo coming out of that. Then you get them doing some Dr. John foolery, Grease, and covering some Dr. John. I think it's Simmons who does the Dr. John impersonation. This is a pretty long, little funky little 8-minute jam. Then you get the Paladin routine number 2, and then you close out with King Kong, the outro. And this is just a phenomenal disc of music. So that's all. I'm almost at 20 minutes. That's all I got to say. So really, if you really like your King Kongs and you really like your Pound for Browns, disc 2, 3, and 4 are going to serve these up in a great platter. Plus, they got some really good solos. This is all about solos. This is what this band could do on a solo improvisation level, with little doses of Flo and Eddie sprinkled throughout, like disc 2 and disc 3, and some random stuff in disc 4. So, number 25, The Mothers, 1970. If you've made it this far, I'm going to do this stupid YouTube indulgent thing right now. If you've made it this far, subscribe, because you've been watching me for over 20 minutes. You have to know what I want to say when I can say it briefer and with more elegance and more eloquence, because this was just rambling, people. But that's what Frank makes me do, ramble. All right, take care, people. Let me know what you think about this. If you have this box set, if you do, check it out. Let me know if you agree with me, if I was wrong, all that kind of stuff, just so I know for future reviews. Take care, y'all. Peace, and thanks for watching.